Hello my loves and welcome back to the CraftWorld studio where we are recapping every episode of the Great British Sewing Bee Season 8? Season 8? Yeah, Season 8. My name is Kate. I am many things to many people. What matters today is that I help out on Love Sewing magazine, which is the hat I'm wearing right now. I'm not wearing a hat, it's too hot for a hat. It's too hot for anything. It's very, very warm here in the UK right now. So if you hear a gentle whirring in the background, that's because I've got a fan down there, because this studio is soundproofed, which also means it's extremely well insulated and gets very, very warm. So apologies in advance for any background whirring. This episode of Sewing Bee is Japan Week. So we're taking inspiration from loads of different Japanese textile traditions, which is fantastic to see. My attempt at being on theme today is that this is a dress from a Japanese brand. It's a sundress. It's not explicitly Japanese in any kind of a way. It's got macarons on it, which are French, but it's from a Japanese brand, so I feel like I've ticked a box. It's a really, really fantastic week this week for many, many reasons, including the twist at the end, which I won't go into now. I will save that until the end of my wittering on. But I have feelings, I have emotions. I think they're mostly positive. Yeah, I think they're mostly positive. It's all good. So, without further ado, we're going to get cracking on looking at this episode's challenges. Before we do, I know I'm annoying, but I am going to ask you to subscribe to our channel because it really, really helps us out. We lost access to our old channel, and I think we're now close to overtaking them. So let's beat ourselves. And yeah, so if you can subscribe to the channel, like this video if you like it, super important, leave a comment, let me know who you would have sent home this week, because like I say, I have my feelings about it. I might be wrong, I might be very wrong. I'm probably wrong, I usually am. But I really, really want to know what you guys think, so please, even if it's just the name of the person that you would have sent home, you don't need to give any reasons, but just leave a comment saying who you would have sent home. I'd be really, really interested to see what you guys think. Okay, so challenge 1 is the pattern challenge, which Esme has created a pattern specifically for this challenge with a friend of hers who is a Japanese textile designer, which is awesome. I love to see that, you know, if we're paying homage to a particular culture, that we are getting people from that culture involved. So this is, it's not a kimono, because kimono is a very, very complicated thing, even more complicated than this pattern challenge was. So this is a day dress which is inspired by certain elements of kimono patterns and styling. So it's a really, really beautiful pattern, and the sewists made a really good job of it. It's a tricky pattern, don't get me wrong. It's a challenge to get this done in the time, and that's the point of this challenge. There's no point giving them something easy, because then they will all absolutely knock it out of the park and do it perfectly, and then how do you judge between them? So there are some complications to this. The sleeves don't go together the way you might expect. Things like, you know, it's a dressmaker's instinct to make a collar lie flat against the back of the neck, but you don't want that in this instance. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. If you would like to sew a belted wrap dress, which is what this is, we have a much simpler version on CraftWorld. It's called the Kim dress. It used to be called the kimono dress. We decided to rename it because it's not really directly related to a kimono in the way that this is. It's just a belted wrap dress with square sleeves, but it's very fun to sew and easy to wear, and honestly in this weather, make one in cotton lawn and you will be the floatiest little angel in the whole world. You'll be extremely happy with it. So yeah, that's over on CraftWorld. I will leave a link below. I might even put it on special offer. Let's see. I will make a decision between now and when the email goes out about whether I'm going to put it on special offer. If you're lucky, it'll be super cheap. So let's get on with actually looking at the sewing bit. So I'm going to pull this up on my screen here so that I can see what I'm talking about. So first impressions, I think they all did a cracking job. These all look from a distance wearable. Brogan's choice of fabric is, she thinks it's a departure. I don't. I think it still looks very Brogan somehow. It's very sweet, little, I think little dragonflies on the fabric. The hem isn't laying exactly as you would want it to. I think she ran out of time and didn't have time to press, which with a garment like this that's all about crisp lines, it just needed a good old press, really. That could have sorted a lot of the problems with it. What do we reckon for Brogan's? She gave it a darn good shot, but maybe we need to be harsh, because this is the semi-final, folks. We've got to be harsh. I'm going to start with a 3 so that there's something to choose between them. I'm also going to write down the scores and top them up. So, Brogan, I'm giving her a 3. It's a 3, yeah? We think so. Deborah's, now, she fell foul of this pattern having things in it that are very unexpected for an experienced seamstress, which Deborah is. She's extremely experienced, extremely skilled, and when you are very, very good at something, you do a certain number of things on autopilot, which this pattern challenge was designed to catch out. So the reason her sleeves and things like that aren't sitting the way they should is because she's just trusted her gut, which with this particular pattern isn't the thing to do. So I think there's probably bigger mistakes here than for Brogan, and we gave Brogan the middle of the road 3 score. So I'm going to have to be harsh and give this a 2. Sorry, Deborah. It's a 2. I'm writing these down so that I can't go back on myself, okay? Manyi, I think, did an absolutely stunning job. I think it looks so beautiful, so wearable. She has tied that bow so well. Tying a bow is really, really hard. It looks a little bit like perhaps the lining is a touch short, so that might be that she's not quite lined up her seams properly, things like that. So there's a couple of places where it isn't fully perfect, but it's good. So I'm giving Manyi a 4. So I'm writing it down. Manyi, 4. Annie, now. Haven't I been saying since the beginning of this series that Annie is a superstar? She is so good. I love everything about this. I love her fabric choice. It reminds me of an ex-colleague, Gav, who now works at Minerva, made a shirt out of very similar looking fabric, so I wonder if it's the same, from the same line. He posted a picture of it to his stories the other day. Yeah, it's a 5, isn't it? It's a 5 for Annie. It's got to be. It's got to be. It's just so good. I love her decision to just make life more difficult for herself and go for that split lining. I don't know if it was because she ran out of one of the fabrics, maybe, but I don't think so. I think it was just a deliberate decision. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful job. Very wearable. It's just, yeah, gorgeous. Well done, Annie. So, next up is the transformation challenge, and oh my days, this is the best transformation challenge I think they've ever done. You guys know I'm generally not a fan of the transformation challenges, but this Visible mending is my jam. I love it. I think when it's done right, it's so beautiful, and it is very Japanese. It's something that in Japanese culture there are various traditions of visible mending in textiles and in ceramics as well. And the idea that, okay, something has been damaged, but in mending it, you make it more beautiful than it was before it was damaged, so the damage itself isn't damage anymore, it's an improvement. So it's a beautiful thing when it's done right. It's so beautiful. So I think there were some sewists who were familiar with this already and got the challenge and absolutely ran with it. There were some sewists who perhaps were less familiar with the techniques, but they still all did a good job. So let's take a little look. My pen is ready for scoring. So first up we have Annie's jacket. I find it interesting that more than one person in this decided to go for stars, but it is what it is. I think she's done a good job. She's made a garment that's very wearable. For me, what it's missing is that hand-stitched element of sashiko. There's a little bit of it, but I would like to see a bit more. She's made, like I say, she's made it into a wearable garment. I like that she's added the contrast fabric to the collar as well as to the patches. But for me, I think that's it's a 3.5 for Annie. I think it's not blowing me away. Deborah's, it's nice, it's fine, it's just patching. It's in lots of machine stitching, and I don't think it elevated the garment in the same way that the other sewists elevated their garments. So for me, Deborah, it's maybe a 2.5. Sorry, Deborah, it's a 2.5. Brogan's skirt is super cute, very Brogan. I love anyone who has a really solid sense of personal style. Again, it's a bit disappointing not to see more hand stitching on this, but it's cute, and I like that she's definitely elevated it from where it was. It's adorable. This with a little glittery t-shirt would be so precious. So I'm giving her the same as Annie. I'm giving her a 3.5 for Brogan. Manyi. This is perfect. Everything about it is absolutely spot on perfect. To have done this in the time is incredible. Her little hand-stitched rainbow brings me so much joy I cannot even begin to describe. That she's had the vision to see these two patches as clouds that can be joined by a rainbow, and then she's got the rising sun stitched on the back pocket. It's a 5, isn't it, guys? It's a 5. It's got to be a 5. I'm putting it to 5. It's a 5 for Manyi. I don't know whether, so she's said before that she has she started sewing because of cosplay, which is it started in Japan, and she's into her anime and things like that, so maybe she is very into Japanese culture, and that's why she's seen this technique before, and it's kind of easier for her to pull out those references. But it's stonking. It's just gorgeous, and yeah, I could stand here all day waxing lyrical about how much I love this. I'm so glad she's doing well. It's lovely to see good people doing well. I mean, they're all good people, aren't they? That's the problem with this show. They're all good. How do you choose between them? So, finally, we come on to the made to measure. And this is an interesting brief because it can be interpreted so widely, and I think we can see in the finished garments how widely it can be interpreted, because I think all of them followed the brief. It depends exactly what their brief was, because if it was just a dress inspired by origami, they've all hit that brief. They've done it in different ways. I was expecting a lot more structural pleats, which is something that a lot of Japanese fabric designers and textile designers, sorry, have pulled on in the past. So that was kind of what I was expecting to see shapes created by pleats. But I don't think that was, from what they've come out with, I don't think that was explicitly in the brief that they were given. So some of them have interpreted it in that way, and some of them have gone more literal. So I'm gonna say, in terms of when we come to thinking about whether or not they've hit the brief, I'm going to be generous and assume that the brief was just a dress inspired by origami. So let's take a look at what they all made. Now Annie's, I think, is stunning. It's really, really beautiful. I think that the fact that she's drawn on her own experience with origami to create this very, very chic, wearable little cocktail dress, and it looks immaculate. You look, all the details, the pleats, the corners, it just looks stunning, and it looks expensive. It really, really does look expensive, and I can find no flaws with this dress. I really can't. I think it's just, it's a 10, isn't it, guys? It's a 10 for Annie. Annie's getting a 10. Manyi, I think, made her job too difficult. Now, the judges were making a lot about the fact that she should have decided ahead of time whether she wanted to have a zip or not. But I actually get where Manyi's coming from, because it's not so much about measurements as it is your model's range of motion, almost. Because I can get a lot of things on and off without a zip because I have extremely bendy shoulders, but other people would need a zip for those things. And she knows how much work this dress needs, and if she can skip putting a zip in, she's going to do it. I understand. All of the work she's done is stunning. I do think she made her job too difficult for herself. I think the things that she did with the collar and the pleats here were much more interesting than the very literal origami crane that she put on the front. But that very literal origami crane will have been what took up the majority of her time. So that's why it ended up messy in the back, because she ran out of time, and that's why she was trying to get away with not doing a zip. So I've waffled on a lot about Manyi's. All of this is to say that I think there's a lot of really good sewing in it, that she needed an extra, 5-10 minutes to tidy up the back there. But fundamentally, the problem was that she set herself too big of a task in something that isn't actually gonna give you the reward that you want from it. I think she, like I said, I think she would have been better off going down the route of what she did up here. That's far more interesting to me. But there's so much good sewing in it, so I can't give it any less than an 8. So I'm giving it an 8. Now, on to Deborah's. This is what I was saying about structural folds to create the garment. It's absolutely stunning, flawless, beautiful, unexpected. I don't think it even needed the bits around the bottom, you know. I think it almost would have been better without them. I think it's kind of taken it it's made it less wearable, I think. It's more of an interesting piece of textile design, for sure, with those little bottom pieces, but it would have been so chic if it was just pure white and just folds. But we can't give this any less than a 10, can we, guys? It's got to be. It's absolutely got to be. It's just beautiful. Do I go this? I think, yeah, even though I personally think it could have been made more wearable by having some things taken out, I can't dock her any points. It's beautiful. It's really, really gorgeous. She's done an incredible job. I think Deborah, is a very, very strong contender for winning this whole thing. I've said that from quite early on, because she's very poised, she's very smart, she's obviously extremely smart, and she's excellent at what she does, and this is such a beautiful example of it. And then finally we come on to Brogan, who I think has taken the brief differently to how I would have interpreted it, but she has looked at origami and taken her inspiration from origami and very clearly translated that into a stunning little garment. It's beautiful. It's so fresh, and weirdly, even though it's in neoprene, which is a very bulky fabric, it's got lightness to it. I think it's beautiful. Esme said, I think that she didn't like the pieces around the neck, but I think it needs that to balance out where the red's sitting. I can't find any flaws here. The only flaw would be that this isn't how I would interpret that brief. Like I said, I would go for structural folds like Deborah did, but as a garment, if we assume that the brief was a dress inspired by origami, it's also a 10. So I'm going to do some maths here. I've added up my totals, and like we said before in previous episodes, I've weighted this because I think the made to measure is a more important challenge. So the pattern challenge and the transformation challenge are out of 5, and then the made to measure is out of 10. So my scores, and you might disagree with me, has Annie in first place with 18.5 out of 20, followed by Manyi with 17, Brogan with 16.5, and Deborah with 14.5. Now, nobody went home this week because the judges could not put a piece of paper between them. I think what happened was that Deborah's made to measure was so extraordinarily good that they couldn't send her home on that. Because for me, even though that final garment was a 10, and it was beautiful, you couldn't send her home with that garment. So next up, you're looking at Brogan or Manyi, who both had, I mean, you could have maybe made an argument for Manyi based just on the made to measure, but she did so well, particularly in that transformation. I think that transformation challenge from Manyi could have been garment of the week. It was so good. And you know, I hate transformation challenges, right? So I do think the judges made the right call, because the fair call would have been Deborah, but you can't send her home with that made to measure. It was just so beautiful. Yeah, So that's what I'm thinking. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think one of the other sewists should have gone home. I think in terms of the made to measure, the only one that did fall short was Man Yi, but she fell short because she gave herself too much to do, not because she's not a great sewist. And like I say, you could tidy up that back neck in 5 or 10 minutes. So I don't think it would be fair to send someone home just on the basis of 5 or 10 minutes worth of tidying. We all know I love Man Yi, and I love all of these sewists. That's the problem, they're all so good. Can we just make them all winners? Can we do that? I know we can't, but I want to. It's hard, isn't it, chaps? It's really hard. Let me know what you think. Let me know, like I say, let me know who you would have sent home in the comments. And yeah, well, I will be back next week for the final. How has that come around so quickly? It's been such a fantastic season. Now, we did say a couple of episodes ago that if the episode with me and Michelle in it together got 1,000 views by the time we come to film the final, that we would do it as Esme and Patrick. We're not there yet. So if you're watching this video and you haven't yet watched the video that me and Michelle did together, go back, watch that one. It's the lingerie week video. You only have to watch it for a couple of seconds for it to count as a view. Because if we can get that one to 1,000 views, I mean, if you want this to happen, if you want me in this studio in a tweed suit and the darling, wonderful Michelle in a wig and the largest bow we can possibly fashion, maybe you don't want that, but if you do, go and give that episode a watch, because if that one gets to 1,000 views, we're doing it. With that, thank you so much for watching. Like I say, leave a comment, like, subscribe. That all helps us out so much, and make sure we can carry on doing what we love doing, which is this nonsense and making lovely magazines and creating beautiful, inspiring stuff on CraftWorld.com, which is our internet home. I will leave some links below to find out more about different Japanese textile traditions. We've got some fantastic, fascinating articles on CraftWorld. We've got some free patterns. And yeah, that's me. I'm done. I will see you next week, potentially in a tweed suit.